Hey, people who lost their jobs to AI, what happened? I used to be a data scientist with 13 years of experience. My boss wanted me to solve a problem which involved clustering sensor data by location. Because errors in latitude and longitude tend to be random, we'll have elliptical clouds of points, so I said we should use k-means. My boss picked up his laptop, turned it around, and said, "But the Copilot says that we should use DBScan." I researched DBScan and found that it would be very slow and do the wrong thing in a worse way. My boss did not agree. I was laid off a few weeks later, along with the rest of the data team. My boss was laid off 2 months after that. Now the company has an open position for an AI scientist in India. Sounds like this company was very immature in its data science journey. Story 2. Graphic designer here. I haven't been fully replaced yet, but the landscape has completely changed. Clients now expect me to use AI as a co-pilot, generating initial concepts, mood boards, and even rough copy in minutes, not hours. The job is becoming less about executing the first idea and more about curating, refining, and adding the crucial human touch and catching AI's weird mistakes. It feels like I lost my job and more like my job description was rewritten overnight. The pressure to constantly adapt is a real challenge. Story 3. Voice actor here. Hey, I gotcha. While I still get the bigger commercials and jobs, I've lost a lot of the smaller jobs. For example, storyboarding. Ad agencies will create a digital storyboard detailing what the ad will look like, and they used to hire a voice artist to do a preliminary voiceover. You'd earn like $150, $200 for the hour. It's all AI now. I've worked on campaigns where all of the voice artists refuse to sign their contract because there's a new clause in it. If they sign, they're signing the rights of their voiceover to AI. This means the client can use their voice without them ever having to record anything else again. They all refused, and the client just recast all of them. Story 4. Not me, but one of my close friends worked at a call center that was specifically for the hard of hearing and disabled. These are the people who have the phones with screens that write out or speak the text. Her job was to basically subtitle each call that came in. She would type out the conversation as it was happening for the disabled person. As you can imagine, they were all laid off and replaced by AI. I've heard it's already caused legal issues and people are suing because the AI is giving them incorrect information, especially from doctors or in medical-related conversations. Story 5. Heck, if I'm going through this right now, I'm going to be fully transparent here. To preface, I didn't lose my job to just AI, but to outsourcing in tandem with AI that our C-level executives thought could perform on par with US employees. I work for a Microsoft vendor that provides global support for Azure Cloud and 365. This covers a lot of support verticals. Some are technical and some are not so technical. I am a support engineer for Azure Identity and Access Management. We provide break-fix, RCA, and advisory support on anything from hybrid environment identity management, cloud-only environments, enterprise provisioning, SCIM, SSO, RBAC, application access, onboarding, offboarding, lifecycle management, key vault, directory management, and subscription concepts, etc. We have the broadest scope of Azure technical support. You, as an SMB or enterprise organization, can pay for Azure support. The support plans vary from broad commercial to unified, expensive, and white glove. Think Fortune 500 companies. When you make a support request, the request likely goes to a vendor like myself. Sometimes you get a guy who can't speak English and the support is awful, or you get to an American team, or sometimes they escalate to the better performing teams. As a vendor, we have a contract with Microsoft to provide the support. There are internal Microsoft support engineers, but a smaller team working for typically the customers Microsoft deems the most important. My team is comprised of American engineers. We consistently have had the highest metrics, such as days to close complex issues, lowest rate of technical escalations, and the highest satisfaction ratings from our customers compared to teams from other countries like Nigeria and India, where they take months to resolve issues we'd resolve in days, and they have extremely low satisfaction reports. No shade, but I have seen the work from these places, and it is always playing hot potato and "we are inquiring internally" updates, putting work on other teams, no actual engineering or meaningful work. My company definitely already underpays us, but the last 2 years hard pushed us to use a Microsoft proprietary Copilot version to quote-unquote assist with our casework. This AI became a mandatory metric where we could get fired for not using it. This AI is and almost always wrong with technical information and always wrong on key details when assessing complex issues. Essentially, it was completely useless if you have any semblance of competency in your role. So my company gets the go-ahead from Microsoft to start us on the highest tier of paid support, Unified, this year after months of the AI push, which we crush as usual. And then they are renegotiating our contract, stringing us along, saying we will make more as we are doing more work and working with more demanding and complex organizations. Instead, once they got the contract, they lay off every single North American team to outsource our jobs to an African country that will not be named to pay these guys 400 USD a month because they are betting they can perform near our level leveraging the AI we trained. It is still useless and actively sabotaging yourself to attempt to rely on it in any form. Oh, and we didn't even get severance. We are just expected to work as normal and keep training this AI until our last day at the end of the year. It's maddening and insanity. My condolences if you pay for Microsoft Azure support. You shouldn't. Feel free to ask me anything. Story 6. I wasn't replaced by AI in a one-to-one capacity, but it did destroy my field in general. It's a weird case. I had 10 years of experience doing an extremely niche type of government paperwork. Without going into detail, this was the sort of paperwork that businesses, especially small businesses, absolutely had to do for a few logistical reasons. It was extremely tedious and extremely long, 250 to 500 pages about 20 times a year. I mostly worked for small businesses who themselves would work for various government branches. Around late 2023, early 2024, the typical AI quote-unquote grifters started selling their products to businesses in this area. The idea was, hey, you have a staff of managers, editors, and writers. Our LLM can replace all of that. So these small businesses, which were in truth very small, around less than 30 people usually, ate this up. They were already fly-by-night skeleton operations by design, and any cost-saving measure was welcome. So the small businesses laid a bunch of us specialists off, myself included. Here's where it gets weird. The type of paperwork we do is extremely complex, very time-sensitive, and is often reviewed at a very detailed level. So the AI actually couldn't replace the people with a lot more time and money invested in editing and correcting it. The problem is, this sort of paperwork is absolutely essential in keeping the business's doors open. So many of these small businesses, most of whom would have lived contract to contract, suddenly lost the ability to do this paperwork, which meant they lost the ability to get new contracts, which meant they mostly just went out of business. This all happened at roughly the same time as the general downtick in government spending. So my field was briefly replaced, but now people want to hire again because the AI couldn't do the job. But 80% of the companies that would be hiring these jobs back simply don't exist anymore because they went out of business. Story 7. I'm an epidemiologist working for a local health department in a team-building disease surveillance capacity. Basically, my team makes data cleaning and visualizations automated so we can spend time interpreting the output and detect outbreaks and patterns earlier. We all have masters or PhDs in epidemiology and biostatistics. We are being pushed out in the middle of the respiratory season at the end of the year, so the IT team can make oversimplified graphs that are not useful and use AI for the rest. It's absolutely horrifying that our community's health is in the hands of untrained IT and AI. Story 8. I spent 15 or so years writing the content that goes on websites. I had a range of clients from investment advisors to life coaches to nutrition coaches to people who sold sexy garments for men. I had an advantage with some clients because of my engineering degree, so I wasn't afraid of numbers or to dig deep on technical topics. I rage quit my first job doing this, long story, worked in a warehouse for a year or so, then took another job writing websites. Same deal, I hadn't been in that job for 10 months before our CEO, who inherited the company from his dad, quote-unquote, discovered generative AI software. Suddenly, they wanted the software to write everything and me to, quote-unquote, edit it. I absolutely hated every second of it, and I guess it showed. Soon after, I was fired. The CEO was going to let the software write the website content so that he could focus on his newest, quote-unquote, baby, a free-to-consumer print, yes, print, magazine. So I went back to my warehouse jobs because jobs doing what I did were suddenly non-existent. The print magazine my former CEO was so passionate about kept getting thinner and thinner. Then they started charging for it. I don't know any more than that, but I do hope he is having a terrible time. Story 9. Luckily, it was just my side hustle, although a lucrative one. I used to be a note-taker for technical meetings, including some remote meetings. Then various programs rolled out AI transcription services. The results are not as good as what I was producing and actually have critical errors not infrequently. Did you know can and can't sound extremely similar when spoken in a room with poor acoustics? But I can't really expect people to be willing to pay my rates when there's something literally free that produces about 70% of the quality. I wasn't interested in doing it for lower rates, so there went that side hustle. Even in government agencies that couldn't use the programs, it still devalued the perception of my work and what someone would be willing to pay for it. Story 10. I didn't lose my job to AI, but I did lose it because of AI. I was an editor for a website that relied on affiliate links for revenue, and once traffic dropped because of AI overviews, they were screwed. It seems a lot of publishers were in the same boat. The buyers tried to hire me back on a freelance basis, but didn't want to pay even half what I had been earning, LOL. Now I'm learning other skills like coding, but it seems like that might be a waste of time too. I've actually also been finding useful cases for AI and educating myself on it, so I'm hoping that will help. And I'm applying for communications jobs instead of editing because they're related and those jobs actually still exist. Story 11. For all the endless talk about AI replacing people, I'd love to see some concrete examples of how much that has proven successful for the companies. Everyone seems to hate AI customer service, and some places have already walked that back. I've seen stories of other businesses that fired all of their copywriters, etc., only to have to hire people back to fix the slop. In my personal experience, it hasn't fully replaced people, but it's being forced down so many people's throats and workflows with the expectation that they should be able to produce much more work using the AI output. However, it's still constant mistakes invite a lot of risk factors across many industries and often add in more labor having to fact check or fix said mistakes. Story 12. I worked for a company where the CEO decided we had to become an AI first company. The problem space was definitely not AI first. So we had to all start using AI in everything, and then one day they let go of the entire Q&A department, the entire sales department, and a big chunk of the software engineering group and the post-sales group. None of those groups had AI solutions built to take over. I've already seen customer complaints where bugs have gotten out into the wild, so good luck with that. Story 13. Not lost yet, but insurance. I feel like the only reason we have people on our team is so that people calling in aren't talking to a robot. Other than that, claims, emails, appeals, and medical record readings are all done by AI. My boss says we need to focus on the important things, which is living up to customer expectations. So we have claims done by the day because now everyone is advertising how quick claims can get done. As time goes on, our teams get smaller. They even replaced our whole training department for newcomers. Your voice is now analyzed and used for grading for your reviews. It's also getting stored and sold as data. It's not a good thing, guys. Patience is a good thing to have, and tech has cut that short for a lot of people. Story 14. Marketing copywriter here. AI deleted the freelance writing market and decimated the bottom 50% of all corporate writing positions in a matter of days. Applicant pools went from 40 to 60 per job to 3,500 to 5,500 per job in under a month. It was so dispiriting that LinkedIn changed its UI to accommodate and obfuscate the insane increase in applicants. Individual jobs don't list applicant numbers anymore, they're just labeled by popularity. I have an inordinate number of accolades and degrees for my age. I've written a Super Bowl commercial and I've written for Joe Rogan, Post Malone, and others. I can't even find work. I'm now an OF content creator. Story 15. I'm an accountant, and in the past 6 months, I've seen 3 staff reductions at my place of employment, all of which had some effect on our departmental staff. Each has amounted to about a 10% staff reduction. January 8, 2026 is circled on my calendar because that is likely the last day I can expect to still be employed. My job is rote, time-consuming, and ripe for AI. Within a few years, I can't imagine there will be even 10% of the staff levels from 2023 and prior. This is a whole new world we're entering, and I don't think we're prepared for it. There should be massive government-backed education programs set up to help people learn new skills and re-enter the workforce. Instead, I really fear what is going to happen even if, when the AI bubble pops. I recently enrolled in a program at a local tech college to be a medical assistant while I'm waitlisted for the radiography program. I'm aware of the challenges, burnout, etc., but I need a job that can dependably be around for 25 more years. Story 16. I was hit with a 3-punch combo, outsourcing to Romania, automation, and yep, I'm the one who trained the Romanians and helped write the automation to make our jobs a little less taxing. Fired without notice after 11 years. Have no loyalty to your company. They will drop you without hesitation to save a buck. You and your family aren't human beings to them. That being said, I was overworked and underpaid. Since losing my job, I've now gotten 2 full-time jobs I can work simultaneously, remote, and have over doubled my income in less than a month. Don't get comfortable out there, people. Story 17. I haven't lost my job and I doubt I will, but I find the way people are using AI for a job like mine to be extremely concerning. I'm licensed on a national and state level as a mental health therapist. Right now, I do evaluations for mental health services and am not providing direct therapy services, but regardless, I don't think AI is capable of either of those jobs, at least not yet. There is a certain level of empathy you have to do the job or jobs, and I'm not sure a machine can fake it well enough. In theory, me doing evaluations could be replaced by AI, assuming clients could type back answers, but most people I see are woefully technologically illiterate, if not outright Luddite and technophobic, and refuse to interact with computers because they don't know how. I think even providing voice responses to a machine or an AI avatar would be so off-putting. People complain enough now about doing telehealth, which has become very widespread post-COVID. All that to say, the trend of quote-unquote replacing a therapist with AI is something that disappoints, frustrates, and outright scares me. I'm not sure a machine intelligence will ever be able to provide concise therapy services. It's one of those things that is a science that is more art than science. Generally, research shows that across the board, therapeutic interventions of any one school do about the same, but there is a human element to it. There's also nuance on diagnostics that I see reviewing others as documentation all the time because they're relying on a checkbox like AI would. AI bots that are essentially a kiss butt that just tells you what you want to hear are concerning. Reflection is a textbook skill for therapists, but as a client and therapist, one of the most memorable interactions I had with a provider was when I was at a very low point and expressing borderline SI, and they got angry and told me I needed to get over myself and cut the BS. That was almost 15 years ago, and I still think about it sometimes. It is concerning how they can and will reinforce reality distortions or outright delusions people have, not to mention the danger of people expressing SI or intent that are encouraged by machines that are easily jailbroken by just saying, oh, it's a joke/game/someone else. Like many other factors, I don't think people training these models have considered the risks, and frankly, I doubt they care, to be honest. We've already seen one high-profile case of someone who has passed away by ending it all, who had a chatbot encouraging them that sat by and did nothing. They said they fixed it, but I'm still skeptical. Because I'm not a doctor with a PhD or MD, people assume that being a therapist is some rinky-dink thing and I'm not a real medical professional and that anyone can do it. I had to work for over 1,000 hours under direct supervision before I was even free to see a client alone, then 2,000 more under indirect supervision before I obtained my license. Then I am allowed to independently engage with people, and even then there are still multiple guardrails and nets in place to prevent malpractice. Story 18. I was a copywriter. Fun stuff too. People who were making their own fantasy worlds for video games, D&D games, or board games approached me to rewrite their rule system in a flavor text way. It was good fun and helped fund myself through university. I don't remember what the pay was, but it was decent considering how annoying and time-consuming it was to make game rules sound interesting. But yeah, as soon as ChatGPT launched, I lost most of my clients. Why pay me for 5 hours of work to do what a prompt will do for free, I guess? Story 19. I worked for a major US-based insurance carrier. I wasn't actually fired, but they started pushing a lot of people out the door, and I left before I could be next. For the last few years, AI has been the big push. The goal was being able to generate a policy without ever needing to speak to a human, and if you file a claim, being able to submit photos, get an estimate, and pay out instantaneously and with minimal human contact. So they started implementing fully automated systems, laying off the most tenured employees and driving up the workload for everyone else. In my department, the fraud department, they started using AI to scrape claim files, looking for fraud indicators to generate cases and then assign them out. It worked okay for some types of cases, but terribly for most others. But the company didn't care. They laid off the entire intake team. Company-wide, they reworked our metrics to be impossible to meet, then started routinely firing the bottom performers. Everyone, including me, saw the writing on the wall and started looking elsewhere. I can't speak for the rest of the company, but I suspect they are going to soon get hit with some massive lawsuits because AI and you employees make a lot of mistakes, and you can't make mistakes on contractual things like this. Too bad they laid off most of the legal team and switched the entire HR department to AI. For my small department, they lost centuries worth of experience along with most of their employees, and they are getting hit really hard by fraud rings that they used to be industry leaders in combating. Too bad everyone who knew how to deal with them was fired or driven away. I won't say who the company is, but if your insurance company's mascot is green and animated, you should know what your premiums are going to. Story 20. I worked in tech support for 16 years. After COVID, I noticed it was getting harder and harder to find work in my field. Since 2021, I've applied at hundreds of places and rarely ever get a call back or even a courtesy email. I started to suspect AI recruiting tools were rejecting my resume for arbitrary reasons. It's true that I had a couple of jobs I only lasted a year at, but I don't think that should completely invalidate me as an employee. I was making $135,000 4 years ago working for a large tech company, and now I can't even find full-time work. I work part-time in a mall and need to find a second job if I'm going to survive. So I don't think my position was replaced with AI agents, but I'm fully convinced AI tools are keeping me underemployed. I lost my house, my car, my mental health, and most of my possessions all because I don't fit the 100% perfect criteria for a remote tech job I have lots of experience in. And if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 21. Lost my job as a copywriter/content writer. I've thankfully settled into a strategy role on how to use content to achieve things instead. That's something AI hasn't quite figured out yet. I was replaced as they thought AI could come up with better content than I could. They asked me to use it, and admittedly, it helped a lot to brainstorm very basic ideas after checking it hadn't suggested plagiarized copy, refine them into something cool and share that in kickoff meetings to build upon with a team of creatives. But they read it as AI is doing the work, and so they ditched me. They hadn't actually tested to see if it could work without me, and when it came to it, it fell flat. Since then, they've defaulted to the most generic, soulless tone of voice. Instead of introducing interesting, attention-grabbing content, they just put the title of the product in instead and then send it out. For a heritage company in business for 180 plus years to not have a brand voice? Ouch. Fair enough, money will always win, but I do laugh when all the companies that use AI see it as the second coming. It also complained that their tone of voice and branding seems to have just fallen off a cliff in the previous years. They can't seem to connect those dots, or I suspect they don't want to, or more likely, it doesn't matter to them. I'd say it's a lesson about modern business leaders and one that I don't see enough people understanding. It's no longer about having some respect for your product or customers, offering something of quality to the world or staff, a livelihood and career, nor is it about doing some kind of good in the time we're here. It's only about money. My advice to those struggling to understand this is stop trying so hard to prove your worth to these parasites. Stop pushing to improve your output. Just press the button on the robot. Stop innovating. Just press the button on the robot. Stop trying to impress and showcase your ability. Just press the button on the robot. Keep your creativity for yourself. You'll be paid or laid off either way. Story 22. Not directly me, but I'm a printer that also does graphics and stuff. The amount of posters and flyers I've printed that were made with AI is insane. All of them have mistakes too. Clients also refuse my spell check and print data check way more often to cut costs. I bet some poor folks got fired in those departments. Luckily, I started working in merchandise for musicians. All of our clients care about human-made graphics on their shirts and hoodies. Story 23. This is fresh for me. I was laid off on October 3rd. I'm a social media manager. My company closed down the entire brand department, including designers and copywriters. They thought AI could produce all the social media content, which it technically can, but the content is terrible. In September, my content had reached over 3 million people. The content they've posted in October has reached about 45,000 people so far, and already generated some pretty negative feedback from the community. Anyway, they realized very quickly that AI can't post that content, so they've taken me back as a freelancer 2 days per week to manage the channels without having to produce any of the written or visual content. Very strange times. Story 24. Late to the party, but here's my story. I was set to work on a children's book for the school I worked for. I told them straight away I wouldn't sign up if there was AI. They used AI art for their last children's book, and apparently the kids hated it. They laughed and told me it was all going to be from my imagination, so I wrote it and started to put together some clip art like they asked to make the book. Then I had a lupus flare-up. I was out a whole week, and when I came back, they said the book was ready. However, when I looked at it, yes, it was my writing, but all the clip art had been replaced with the ugliest AI art I had ever seen. I faked ignorance and asked who illustrated it. Excitedly, my boss showed me the AI tool she used. I cried all the way home, and for the next few hours, I was already a fiction author, and if this new book with AI art got onto Amazon like they planned, it was going to ruin my reputation as a very anti-AI author. I texted and asked to have my name removed. One batch had already been sent out and it was too late, but they felt bad and decided to give me a pen name for the next few batches. I parted ways soon after that. Story 25. I had a part-time job for a local private jet hire company. I was the sole person meticulously writing blog posts. It might sound redundant, but due to the age of the people booking flights with us, boomers, they loved it. One part of the editing process was fact-checking, think statistics on bookings per year, updates to safety advice, etc. A year passes with the blog growing month to month, yet they decided to get rid of me and write the post with AI. Every single post had inaccuracies and promised more than what I remember we could deliver. I checked the other day and the company removed the blog entirely since nobody was reading it anymore. I wonder why. Story 26. Many people are being put into positions where they are building and training the AI systems that will ultimately replace them. And they know it, and their bosses know it, and the bosses know it's going to replace them too. But what else are they going to do? There is nowhere else to go, and if they say no, they'll just get fired and someone else will do it. Bills to pay, families to take care of. All this, and I can say honestly as someone close to AI development that it is not ready to replace people. I'll openly say that correct, responsible usage of AI in the right places can make people more effective, but the person is still the key, even in things like coding. But I still see it happening across industries. Fun times. Story 27. Up until March of this year, I was working for a 100,000 plus employee biotech company. Big name. If you ever set foot in a lab, at least 30% of the products and up to 50% come from this company. I left before the layoffs, but AI has replaced a significant amount of scientists working in tech support. Nearly all of my peers and myself have PhDs. Some have been away from benchwork research for years, spanning into decades. There is nowhere for these employees to go. They also sacked a ton of technical sales specialists, too. I knew the writing was on the wall when I started using ChatGPT for troubleshooting advice. By the time I got onto disability, it could analyze Western blots and even flow cytometry data with ease and accuracy. If I were still at the bench, I would certainly use ChatGPT as a starting point before picking up the phone to call tech support. When the first round of layoffs started happening, I considered myself lucky for becoming disabled by MS. Survivor's guilt in the form of progressive neurodegeneration. I miss my brain and my body and grieve heavily for the current state of scientific affairs in this country. I read the biotech subreddit often. Scientists are resorting to gig work now to make ends meet. I never went into research with the intention of being wealthy, but it was certainly something that was assumed. Surely, a PhD should protect you from financial hardship, especially if it comes from a reputable university. Many of us postdoced at medical schools too. Story 28. Earlier this year, my team got access to lots of AI tools. Lots of my teammates started touting all the benefits to leadership with the attitude that AI won't take our jobs, people who know how to use AI will take our jobs. A few months later, they did a huge layoff of almost every senior person in my position, and now a small team of the most junior people are expected to use AI to manage all the work of like 4 or 5 teams, including some complex tools that I built that they have no understanding of. My team alone, who all got laid off, had been basically working at full capacity for the last 2 years. Story 29. I was a writer who did commissions. Over 6 years, I did over 300, from articles to fanfics to NSFW and novellas. It was my full-time job, and I loved it. When AI started over a year ago, I slowly started to have fewer and fewer jobs. Even though on Fiverr I had 5-star reviews and more than 56 client recommendations, it wasn't my fault, but rather AI's. So I stopped having commissions, and that was the end of it. I need to find another job, but now my priority is to enter college and focus on my own writing. From 3 works, I have earned $11 in over 1 year and 2 months, while in only 2 years I earned around $7,600, which is quite a lot for my country. So it shows a disparity. I feel bitterness, and yet I have a memory that I was once so well liked, and when I doubt my skills, I can see how much work I had and with frequent clients. But it is true what Beethoven said in the 1800s, nobles and generally people do not care about art, about the artist. It is a commercial thing, something that they can hear in the background that they enjoy shallowly without true recognition. They do not value art, but they enjoy it. This is the same problem. Art, too, is devalued of any value. And so doing quote-unquote art with AI that is free and looks good for them is enough. And they do not care truly about depth or the artist who lives from it. I will study literature, and honestly, I am just doing it in hope of getting a position as a professor at the college and for the scholarships. But I do not have much of a prospect for the future in those terms. I suppose that the only thing I am good at is writing and teaching, so in a sense, it is very painful. Story 30. My partner lost his job to AI last week. After a year of being unemployed after completing his postgrad and looking for entry-level roles in his industry, sports journalism, he finally got a job as a freelance football writer. He worked for this online football news website, which gave him the most awful, exploitative work contract. But because he couldn't find any other work, he was forced to accept the offer. He worked tirelessly, forced to write a minimum of 10 stories a day, unpaid overtime, sometimes doing 10 to 11-hour days with no breaks for a minimum wage. Over the last couple of months, the company noticed through their analytics a sharp decrease in website views after the introduction of Google's AI overview feature, which automatically gives you an AI-generated response whenever you Google something for an answer. So, answers that would typically be found in a news article written by a real human that you had to click on a website to find are now being replaced by Google's AI overview feature, essentially stealing information from articles posted online by writers and amalgamating it into an often incorrect answer that makes people no longer have to click on websites. The company is losing a ton of money as a result of not getting any clicks, and the CEO has fired over 20 people, editors included, with many years of experience, as they are struggling to cover the costs of writers' salaries. As a freelance writer, his contract had no real financial security, and he was let go with immediate effect with no notice or severance pay. He worked there for 10 months and is now applying for customer service jobs so we can make ends meet next month and afford our rent. Story 31. I was a customer success engineer giving support for a technical program in the architectural field. First, in my job, they demanded that every client that raised a ticket, I should use AI to create an article that detailed a step-by-step solution for the problem as a blog post to be sent to the client for them to solve, and that same article is then used by the ticket platform AI to suggest solutions to the clients to solve the issue. I hated it with every bit of my soul because the AI generated so many errors that you had to spend so much time to correct and then translate it to another language and recorrect it again. But I lost it because the boss wanted to prepare a webinar with the new capabilities of the new version of the program, so it was basically generate content by one AI to be sent to another AI for slides and things. The amount of stuff that AI generated was so much that by doing it by hand would be more productive. On the last day of the job, the boss tried to prove that we were the ones that didn't know how to use it. He spent more time trying to finish one article and he failed miserably. The next day, I was fired. Story 32. I was an editor for a magazine until fairly recently. I didn't actually lose my job to AI. I lost it more to a transition toward using freelancers. However, now that I'm job searching, it feels like I've already lost my next job to AI. Positions as an editor, researcher, translator, content manager are much fewer than the last time I was job searching, and they all seem to require that you use AI, I'm guessing to try to squeeze 3 employees' worth of production out of 1 employee checking an AI's work. It feels a little dystopian, but I also am probably just behind the times and need to start dreaming of electric sheep. Story 33. Social media videographer and editor. I haven't lost my job yet, but clients are increasingly expecting things to be done quickly with AI that they don't fully understand. Scripts and video concepts are largely being created by AI with some human modification, putting stress on our writers to output an insane amount of content. Edits which previously were given lots of thought and care to match the client's brand standards and tone are being put through auto TikTok, clickbait-style captioning, and graphics addition tools. As a previous comment said, we use a lot of AI voiceover where we'd previously hired voice actors. I had one project that was quite expensive and difficult to produce get scrapped entirely after final delivery and replaced with AI video, VO3, so it wasn't even very good. While I haven't lost my job, I've lost a lot of what made it fun and creatively fulfilling instead of being told to output higher and higher volumes of content. No fun. Story 34. I have a BFA in digital art and used to work almost solely in Photoshop and After Effects. My last creative job was as a photo editor for a company that did youth athletics photography centered in Los Angeles. Think your kids' picture day photos for their soccer, little league, or cheerleading team. The month after I got hired, the pandemic hit, and there were no more sports, no more photo shoots, no market, and on top of that, our secondary office burned down in a fire. I'm not even kidding. So I was let go and couldn't find work for ages, and now even Adobe charges you more money for AI in their own software. I couldn't find a job anywhere anymore as an animator, a video editor, or graphic designer in the job market in LA. With the strikes and the layoffs, it's a harsh market to be in. So now I'm a bookkeeper, and even that is being eaten away internally by Intuit. It's like I can't win. Story 35. Sorry to use this as a soapbox, but I want to give this spiel as often as I can in conversations like this. I think it's important to remember that this sort of thing isn't really as new as it may seem. It's affecting different sorts of jobs now, but technology and its productivity boons, on paper if not in practice, has been challenging jobs for decades now. We are very much in the midst of a technological revolution following our previous industrial one. And just like then, without proper regulations and adjustments from those in power, it will inevitably result in less work being available. Now, to be fair, AI still presents a lot of unique issues in terms of art theft, cultural impact, etc. But talking specifically in terms of labor and such, like all of our other new tech, the issue isn't so much its existence, but the system it exists within. Us not having to work as much should be a good thing, but as it is, all that potential for benefit is instead seen almost exclusively via profits. I feel one of the best actions we can and should be pushing for now is a lowering of the average work week, alongside regulation ensuring income remains consistent. Not only does this actually allow us to see some of that benefit in, well, not having to work as much, but also crucially helps ensure that there's more individual jobs to go around. Thanks for hosting my TED Talk. Story 36. I didn't really lose my job, but my income is pretty much dried up. I graduated in 2011 with an AA in Interaction Design. The degree focused on web design, graphic design, and video design. I couldn't find a job when I graduated. No experience plus no bachelor's degree equals no job, so I started freelancing. I did mostly content creation for companies, writing articles and blog posts. I love that work and it paid a lot, but it eventually got outsourced to the Philippines. I'm sure it's all AI now. Then I switched my focus to web design and logo design. I did that for a few years, but I was competing with do-it-yourself programs like WordPress and Square, and now AI and Canva. And that work dried up pretty quickly after I started. And over the past 2 years, AI has killed off any logo/graphic design work I was getting. I now make more money selling coloring books and t-shirts on Amazon than I was making doing freelance graphic design. I'm making a quarter of the income I made last year, and with the prices of everything going up, I can barely keep myself afloat. I don't know what I'm going to do. I know I should probably get a real job, but I live over an hour away from the nearest decent-sized town. I have no references, I don't own work clothes, and I don't have a car. I hear remote work is pretty hard to find these days. Plus, after freelancing for so long, I can't imagine working for someone else. I like making my own schedule. I'm sure I'll figure something out, as I always do. Story 37. I worked in Q&A and compliance for a podcast marketing company for close to a decade. My job was simple on paper: evaluate ad placements and podcasts against provided parameters and flag anything off. It came with occasional similar tasks, that kind of thing, fully remote and steady work. Pay was genuinely great, life-changing where I live, third world country. Active headcount hovered around 30 to 40 for years. In early 2024, I noticed a sharp dip in headcount with no corresponding backfills. I just had a premonition it was only a matter of when I'd get that dreaded message from HR, and I did. As of yesterday, when I checked, they only had 5 active hires for that role. I can't prove it was AI, but the pattern kind of fits. Speech to text, podcast genre classifiers, timestamp detection, and brand safety scanning are all activities AI can do a first pass on faster than humans. No way they are spending the current workload across the 5 persons for that role and their employee. We were processing literally thousands of podcasts every week. My work was trampled underfoot by the unforgiving onslaught of AI. Over a year later, and I am still struggling to find something a quarter as good. LOL. Not bitter, just naming what I think happened. Story 38. I was interviewing at Meta, Facebook, for a position as a technical artist literally as Gen AI was starting to take off. I had highly impressed the interviewers to the point they told me things in the interview like, wow, no one else has been able to answer that question correctly before. What was the role mainly doing? Creating procedural methods for making millions of variations of bedrooms and living rooms to help train the machine learning part of their VR systems. In essence, helping improve the Guardian system on the Quest systems. Surprise, surprise, as soon as there was an option for Gen AI to do all the work for you instead, I suddenly got ghosted for the position. And within a few weeks, Meta announced their own form of Gen AI doing the exact thing I was going to be paid to do. Awesome. Story 39. I got a job at Walmart working the front end. Now I'm in dairy/frozen. I actually do a lot more: meat, produce, online orders, cart pushing, freight, seasonal maintenance, or whatever else they decide. I work 5 times as hard for about 5 times less. The challenges I get for a minimum wage is insane. I was doing data entry. I was a digital nomad, just blowing money like crazy, gambling, drinking, and partying. I didn't give a flip. I'd sleep on couches and tents outside or in a hotel or a motel. I tried looking for another job doing what I was doing, but they want you to take courses or they're scams or whatever, scam after scam. It turns into a sales thing, or it's not even remotely as described. Story 40. A large portion of my job was as a concept artist until my supervisor just started making all her own concept iterations in Midjourney and then didn't need me anymore. That was well over a year ago, a true bummer after over a decade of steady employment. There are still places to pivot, but it's taking more creativity to find those things. Frustrating because so many AI optimists say that you just need to be the one learning AI to survive. But the reality is, unless you lucked out and happened to be working somewhere already where they had you learn and implement it on a project, or unless you're a supervisor, chances of transitioning into those roles is really tricky. In film, folks are already looking for AI artists with 3 years experience, which is a joke since we're all just figuring it out together right now. The bright side is I think analog art will get more valuable, and if any of these stories got to you too, like they did to me, voiceover work, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. I'll catch you in that video.